This video has been produced for the countless thousands of soccer coaches whose teams are getting serious about maximising the collective abilities of their players in 11 versus 11 play. This usually starts happening with players 13 and 14 years of age. The numbers game of arranging players in a team system and a formation is perhaps the most difficult aspect of coaching. What is the best system of play is an often asked question. The truth is, there isn't one. The best system is the one that works best for your team. The purpose of this video is to unlock some of the mysteries surrounding systems of play, particularly for coaches of players between 12 and 18 years of age. In the end, it isn't about numbers, it's about compatibility, skill, fitness, effectiveness, maximising abilities and minimising weaknesses within the team framework. Let's first go back in time and look at the evolution of systems of play. Inevitably, winning teams become the standard for lesser teams. World champions often set the trend, and through the years the game has changed, with rule changes bringing about the fastest adjustment in team play. For instance, when the rules were first formalised in 1863, forward passes were not allowed. Consequently, soccer was then a dribbling game. This was quickly changed when in 1866 forward passes were allowed, but the advanced player receiving the ball had to have at least 3 opponents between the attacking player and the goal line. This was the introduction of the offside rule. Consequently, teams played with a back line of just 2 plus the goalkeeper, as one defender could easily catch the opposition offside by stepping up and leaving the other defender to cover if the offside trap failed. This brought about the very first formal system of play, which was called the pyramid formation. As a result of this easy offside trap, the rule was changed again in 1925 and stipulated that only 2 players needed to be between the advanced player receiving the ball and the goal line. With the goalkeeper normally being one of the 2, it changed the game dramatically. And as we can see in the graphic, if the player moved out, the attacking player would still be onside because he has a defender and a goalkeeper between him and the goal line. This offside rule, with only slight modifications, has survived right into the modern game. Herbert Chapman, the legendary manager-coach of Arsenal in England, revolutionised the game in the 1930s by withdrawing the centre-half who had previously been playing in midfield as a half-back. Consequently, the position was called centre-half-back. This player came into what we would term today the centre-back position, and so formed a back 3, a right-back, a left-back and a centre-back. The success of Arsenal resulted in Chapman's tactical shape, which was called the WM formation, dominating British soccer for over 3 decades. At that time, and for many years to come, not only did players have set positions, they had standard numbers. Number 2 was the right-back, number 3 the left back, number 4 the right half, number 5 the centre half, and so on. What's more, with other teams playing exactly the same way, the players were paired off in a man-for-man basis by number. For instance, the centre half, number 5, would always mark the centre forward of the opposite team who wore number 9. The right back, number 2, would mark the left winger of the opposite side, number 11, and this went throughout the team. When the Hungarians played England in 1953, the Magical Magyars, as they were called, totally baffled the England team, as the Hungarians played 2 strikers and 2 wingers and did not play in the positions that conformed to the numbers on the shirts. Not that they had to, it was a self-inflicted English rule. This new way of playing, introduced by the Hungarians, changed the whole defending system and forced teams to play with at least 4 back players. The withdrawn centre-forward on the Hungarian team, Nando Hidegkuti, was in fact no longer a centre-forward, but a deep-lying centre-forward, which was the term used to describe the position in those days. Today, the Italians would call that player the mezza punta. So the withdrawn centre-forward led to the era of the 4-2-4 system, with the Brazilians using this formation to great effect in the 1950s and 1960s. As well, on continental Europe, various systems of play were developed in the very competitive leagues of Italy, Spain, Germany and Holland. Many of the systems had at the heart of their organisation a tight marking defensive system, often with a spur covering player, the sweeper, playing the leader role at the back of the defence. We'll come back to the sweeper man marking system as well as a zonal defending system later. But first we should spend some time looking at the aspects of the game that are employed by every successful team the world over. The 5 principles of attack and the 5 principles of defence were formalised by Alan Wade, then Director of Coaching for the English Football Association. This was in 1960 when he wrote the FA Guide to Coaching and Training. Every system of play takes into account these 10 principles. The principles of play revolutionised the thinking of soccer coaches the world over and have since become a standard in the development of team play, not just in soccer, but in other sports such as rugby and field hockey. With Alan Wade's permission, we are summarising these principles to show just how important they are in developing a system of play. Some of the terminology from the original book in 1960 may have changed, but nothing else has. Soccer is a game of cat and mouse, and each team changes its persona when the ball changes hands. The 5 principles of attack and defence reflect this. For every principle of attack, there's a counter to it with a corresponding and neutralising principle of defence. As soon as the ball is repossessed by a team, they are on the attack, and the first thought for the player with the ball should be, can I score? And if the answer is no, then is there a forward player in an unmarked or advanced position that I can play the ball to? This is not kick and hope. In the action, the player with the ball is deep in his own half of play, and realistically cannot score from this distance. But just watch as his head comes up. He looks forward, takes another touch of the ball, and then launches a long, accurate, penetrating pass. The same here in this play. The white attacker plays the first time pass into the space behind the defence, which almost produces a top-class goal. Again, another long, penetrating, accurate pass puts the white team into a great attacking position. So back to the graphic. Just so long as the attacker moving into space behind the defence is not offside when the ball is kicked, he is onside when receiving the pass and the pass has penetrated the defence. As we've seen in the first graphic, there's no one pressurising the attacker with the ball, so that player can play his forward pass behind the defence. As we see in the next graphic, a player has pushed in to bring in the principle of delay and stops the forward options of the player with the ball. The white-shirted team initially is defending well in keeping the pressure on the man with the ball. Unfortunately, one of the defenders slips, and it then comes all unglued for the defending team as the ball is played to the red player in between the back players and the midfield, and he is allowed to stay unpressured, giving the opportunity of scoring a wonderful goal. Great attacking by the Reds, but in the end, poor defending by the Whites. In the action here, the white team defends exceptionally well. As the ball is moved, they immediately look to pressure the man with the ball and eventually are rewarded. To keep possession and to be able to move the ball down the field, the player with the ball needs support. As we see in the graphic, all the attacking players supporting the player with the ball are moving into position to make a passing option available. The 2 players on the right hand side need to be careful that they don't move into the same space, while the rear supporting player is not moving at all because he's unmarked and therefore in a perfect position to receive a back pass. The player with the ball is sometimes referred to as the first attacker. The players giving immediate close support are called the second attacker or attackers. Notice how the red players immediately all work hard to get into good supporting positions, and as a result penetrate the white defence and create a scoring opportunity, foiled only by an excellent save by the keeper. Same here with the white team, who take up excellent supporting positions to the player with the ball, and as a result penetrate the midfield, almost producing a scoring opportunity. But what is good for the attack is also good for the defence. So the next defensive principle emphasises the need for defensive support or depth in defence. As we see in the graphic, the delaying player is being well supported by the defender's goal side of the ball. Note too the recovery run of the forward player. Not to a goal side position of the ball necessarily, but to prevent that back pass option that was available when we showed the graphic on attacking support. Looking at the same situation from a different angle, we can see that a little adjustment by the blue defender would give better support to the delaying player and would improve the defensive shape. Notice here with the red team getting into defensive supporting positions that there's one player supporting immediately behind the delaying player. This player is called the second defender. Another defender is a lot deeper and is in a position to cover the forward white player and move into delay if the ball is played to him, which indeed happens. As the tight defensive unit moves in, there's an opportunity to double team the attacker and win the ball. Defending doesn't just begin with the back players. Defending is a team requirement, as we see here, with the front players working hard first to channel the play to the outside of the field, and then, by good rear support, they are able to intercept the ball. Stretching the defence is always in the minds of the attacking team. A team can be stretched vertically by pushing players back towards their own goal, but just as importantly, laterally, by use of the width. In the graphic, the wide right attacker is already using the width and is angled to receive a pass, whereas the wide run of the player on the left hand side, this will really stretch the defence and cause decision difficulties. As we look more closely at systems of play, exploitation of the width becomes a very important tactical ploy. We've talked about the immediate support being the second attacker. Often people exploiting the width become the third attacker. In the video, we see the red team building up an attack from the back, with only limited pressure from the white opponents. Notice the player on the left hand side, who is moving out to give more time and space to receive the ball, but then slightly miscontrols it, so they have to begin again. As the play builds up, we're going to see another player come into the picture from a wide position, right there. Now he's got on the blind side of the white defenders who were ball watching and not aware of where the third attacker was in this wide position, and the wide attacker is able to get across into the most dangerous part of the field. The same action but from a different angle. You can see how the red player has got into a very wide position and is able to move onto the through ball initially undetected. Great use of the width. Similarly here, by exploiting the width of the field, a real scoring opportunity is created from the cross. If attackers are trying to stretch the defence, it behooves the defenders to concentrate themselves in the most vulnerable areas. If a defending team is in any way unsure of itself, it should always fall back to cover the goal area as the arrows indicate in the graphic. The red area is the space where 95% of all goals are scored. Therefore, it is logical to recover into that area if there is any uncertainty or confusion. Recovery runs need to be performed immediately when possession is lost. As the player recovers, he or she assesses just how far that run needs to be. Notice the red team here defending collectively, pushing out to the player with the ball. Good delay, good depth in defence. However, when the ball is played to the unmarked white attacker, there is real concern, and the immediate response by the red defenders is to drop back towards that concentrated area in front of goal. Notice the action of the sweeping player here, who immediately starts to drop off when it appears that his defence may be penetrated, as it is. Note too the recovery runs of all the other white players are back towards the penalty area. While the blue defence in the graphic for the moment seems to be well positioned, the two runs that are taking place by the red attackers are going to cause real problems. As the player comes across the two defenders, a decision has to be made as to whether the marking player goes with the red player, or should that blue player let the red player go and keep an eye on the wide player making the run down the flanks. Either way, the two runs of the red attackers are going to cause problems. Have a look at the run of the player highlighted. His diagonal run into the penalty area causes confusion to the two defenders, who are both attracted towards him, leaving space for the red midfield player to get into an unmarked position if only for a split second, causing some real problems which were eventually sorted out. We've seen this goal before, and it's a great goal. But what we need to do is to look at the run of the player here who moves the defender out of the space that the shooter is looking for in order to make the strike at goal. Individual speed and the ability to interchange positions are so important in the modern game. As an attacker moves forwards, sideways or diagonally with or without the ball, the opposing team has to adjust, and this can unbalance the defence. Which brings us to our next defending principle. The principle of maintaining balance must be exercised to counter attacking runs. As the first defender is applying delay, the second defender should be moving closer to give more support. The other two players are providing balance and are called the third defender, or defenders in this case, as there are two of them. Although it appears that the far defender could be exposed to a potential 2 versus 1, he is balanced off to counter the danger down the left-hand side. The far red player, while he is unmarked, is a long way from the ball, and for the moment is not dangerous. Notice here how the dark-shirted team defending in numbers and putting themselves into well-balanced positions, particularly their back players. They're able to adjust as the ball is moved across the field and into the wide position. As the ball is played wide, there's a quick adjustment by the back players. The wide left-sided defender goes out to pressure the player with the ball, and the central defenders balance off, allowing the first defender and the supporting midfield defender to go in and win the ball. Before covering the final two principles of play, we're going to look quickly at the importance of thinking in thirds of the field rather than the more conventional halves. While the rules of the game and field marking split the field into two, the tactical considerations are better viewed in thirds. In the defending third, the general philosophy is that of caution, both when in an attacking mode and in a defending mode. The white team is being pushed right back into its back third of the field, where it needs to defend doggedly and in a no-nonsense way to repel the red attack. Same here with the white team defending. The first consideration is to stop the dark-shirted team's attack and to move the ball out of the danger area. If you have the skill and the players like this team does to work your way out of these situations, that's great. The red team is now forced to defend in midfield, and by doing so forces the play back towards the white team's own goal. Good, no-nonsense midfield defending. Now with the white team in possession and in the middle third, this is where they must try to maintain possession but also look for penetration opportunities. And while the front third is the most exciting place to be if you're the attacking team, there's still a requirement by the front players to assist in defence when possession is lost. So as we can see in the video here, the final third provides all the excitement of the game and the opportunity for the first prize, the scoring of a goal. Except the goalkeeper here hasn't read the script. So coaches, you need to be considering the thirds of the field as you establish your system of play. And this brings us to the final two principles. Undoubtedly, this is the most exciting principle of all. Twists, turns, back heels, dribbles, volleys, overhead kicks all have a place here with only limited risks. In the graphic, the player with the ball can risk dribbling in towards the goal, for success will produce a great scoring opportunity. The player on the left wing makes a fake to go down the line and then an excellent turn inside to open up the possibility of penetrating the defence. The red attacker here goes after the defender and uses a run by the outside teammate to trick the defender by coming inside. A great play that deserved a better finish, as it would have been an outstanding goal. And here we see another piece of sheer brilliance in the final third of the field, and this provides an opportunity for a shot on goal by his teammate. In the graphic, the defending team is defensively consolidated. However, if the defender nearest the ball dives into the tackle indiscriminately, the well-balanced compacted defence could quickly become disjointed. Similarly, if the back player, for whatever reason, moves out towards the ball, it would leave space for the red attacker to exploit. The white defending team has exercised all the four principles of defence and now must not throw away their good defending position. They wait patiently for the opportunity to win the ball back on their terms. And finally, a recovering midfield player applies the final defensive touch. The word transition has become a key buzzword in today's game. What happens after possession has been regained or after the ball is lost can often determine the result of a game. This is when a quick counter-attack can catch any team off balance. As the blue team moves forward on the attack, a misplaced pass in the midfield is intercepted, leaving the red player with the ball and able to play a diagonal pass in behind the defence, catching the blue players wrong-footed. As we see in the video, transitioning to attack requires a very quick look at the penetration possibilities, and that's exactly what happens here with this first-time forward ball. Fortunately for the red team, a timely last-ditch tackle saves the day. The white team, pushed well back, defends well against this long aerial ball, but now the white team is on the attack, and as the player receives the ball in his own half, looks forward and plays an early ball in behind the defence. Great vision, great transition, but not quite good enough to produce the goal on this occasion. As we were tracing the historical evolution of the game earlier in the video, we had arrived at the 4-2-4 system of play. It was a wonderful attacking system with 2 out-and-out wingers and 2 central strikers, but it quickly went beyond its time. As opposing teams started putting 3 players in the midfield, it exhausted, outplayed and outnumbered the 2 midfielders in the 4-2-4 system, and this led to the demise of the 2 orthodox wingers. The 4-3-3 system, popular in the 60s and 70s, was put under further pressure by teams putting yet another player in the midfield. So this produced a 4-4-2 system which survives into today's game. But then so does the 4-3-3 system. We'll have a look at the modern 4-3-3 version later. The message coming from the video is a consistent one. There is no one best system of play, but there are certain universals. For instance, a team playing against 3 forward players will need to have at least 3 back defenders. With that in mind, we're going to describe the 4-4-2 system in some detail. Why? Because it's easy to modify the 4-4-2 to other formations and other systems of play. As well, we want to show you how one 4-4-2 way of playing can be very different from another. A system is usually developed from the defending shape and the arrangement of players. The defensive organisation is the springboard to move forward from when regaining possession and therefore going on the attack. And it is the defensive shape a team falls back into on losing possession. In its basic form, the 4-4-2 has 4 back players, 2 centre backs and 2 outside backs, 4 midfield players, 2 centrally positioned and the other 2 out towards the flank, 1 on the left and 1 on the right, and then normally a twin striker situation up front. Now this is where the fun begins. There are many ways of using the 4-4-2 system. Let's take a look at the back 4. A team using a zonal defending system will play very differently than a team employing a man marking system with a sweeper. As you can see in the graphic, with the sweeper, that player is always providing cover and support as a second or third defender. The other 3 players pick up on a man-for-man basis. Only if the first defender, the pressurising player, is beaten, or one or more of the back players are caught out of position, will the sweeper step up to become the first defender. Also, as his name suggests, he sweeps around the back picking up the balls that go through or over the top of the defence. As you can see here with our back 4, 3 have got marking assignments